Hey, titses! What's up? You know what? You're fucking cool for watching this video of me talking about basically books I have not read yet. Books that I want to read in 2026. Yeah, this is my TBR for the year, and we all know I'm lying, including myself. But I want to try to challenge myself every year to keep my word and actually read at least like a quarter of the books that I want to read this year. But like, I'm also an avid believer in collecting books and hoarding them and possibly never getting around to reading them, which fills me with a great sorrow. But I also believe that like sometimes you get the book because you know you will one day love and read it. I mean, I like to keep myself those surprises, and then eventually you do, and you're like, I'm so happy I saved this book for years and it's been sitting on my shelf, and I didn't like make myself feel guilty for not having read it at the time just because I felt like I really, really wanted to read it, because sometimes you need to find the right time. And I remember this happened with The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, which is absolutely one of my favorite novels ever of all time. I remember I started reading it one of these years, I think right after I read The Secret History. I was like, okay, I need more of her. And then I started it and I was like, no, it's not the moment. And I don't know why at some point I was like, now's the time. I don't know why, but now's the time I gotta read The Goldfinch. And I remember it was on the top of my shelf. Back in the days, I had a really beautiful big bookshelf. It was super high up in the last row all the way in the corner. And I was like, climb to get it. And I was like, now's the time. And I did not regret it. And it was like one of the best reading experiences ever. And I was so happy I saved it for the right time and that I didn't like force myself. So I hope that there are a few of these books, because a lot of them I just got and I'm like, okay, I need to read that. I know sooner rather than later, if I want to have the chance to actually read it. And there are some that I really have had on my shelf for a really long time. And I know that when I keep making reading them an a priority rather, an emergency, read this book now. It becomes more like it just means that I just should get to it. Really, now should get to it. The first book I want to talk about is not in this pile of books that I want to read. It's not here with me, but I really want to read it. I'm going to start a very exciting project of an online book club, and I want you to be part of that. And if you want to know more details about when it launches and all that and yada yada yada, I highly recommend subscribing to my Substack, Notes from the Prison, which I will link down below. It's about eroticism, the art of becoming, and beauty, which is very vast and all-encompassing. So I tried to find the right word that wouldn't pin me down. I would like to start with every year a different theme, and this year I would like to tackle the theme of love, which is our biggest enemy. Not really. It's just what we are reckoning with every single day. It's the nature of everything. It all comes down to love at all times. And that's like, people in their deathbeds are just like, what do I regret? And it's often related to love. So one of the first books that I want to read in 2026 is called A General Theory of Love. This is written by Thomas Lewis, Fari, Amini, and Richard Lannon. Apparently 3 people. Oh my gosh. It is a book that I stumbled upon on Maria Popova's newsletter, which you might be familiar with, Brain Pickings, it used to be called. Now it's called The Marginalia. It's great. It's a great newsletter. And in there, I find many of my next favorite reads. Herself, I think she wrote a book. And she just announced that she was publishing a book this year. So that's definitely also on my 2026 TBR. I don't remember the name. I should find it. But this book that she recommended is called A General Theory of Love. I think I said that already. This original and lucid account of the complexities of love and its essential role in human well-being draws on the latest scientific research. 3 eminent psychiatrists tackle the difficult task of reconciling what artists and thinkers have known for thousands of years about the human heart with what has only recently been learned about the primitive functions of the human brain. A general theory of love demonstrates that our nervous systems are not self-contained. From earliest childhood, our brains actually link with those of the people close to us in a silent rhythm that alters the very structure of our brains, establishing lifelong emotional patterns and makes us, in large part, who we are. Explaining how relationships function, how parents shape their child's developing self, how psychotherapy really works, and how our society dangerously flouts essential emotional laws. This one gets to me a lot. This is a work of rare passion and eloquence that will forever change the way you think about human intimacy. So I'm obviously very curious. The one thing that I do have to say about these kind of books, which I read a lot of these kind of books, about sort of like reconciling the ungraspable with scientific theory, particularly when it comes to neuroscience. I think neuroscience is probably still in its infancy, although there's been some great advancements. But I do think that like it's a little bit like poetry when you try to explain it. It kind of it's kind of like, what's the point? What's the point of reading this? And I don't know. I just know that I love Maria Popova and that she recommended this, and this was one of her favorite books, and that so many people are hyped up in the comments when she mentions it about this book, that it does make me want to know and want to make my own sort of like assessment whether or not it's good. It's good. I don't know. And this is definitely probably one of the books I would want a book club with you guys. So I am very curious. I'm very, very curious. I've talked a bit about some books on love, but mostly written by poets. In my previous video, one of these videos around this one. And all these books compiled, like read in certain order with some novels as well, will get us to a greater understanding of still something that will be ungraspable. But you know what? At least we can connect on the fact that we are not alone in our woes, in our love woes. Okay, now about the books that I actually have copies of. I really want to read Chelsea Girls by Eileen Myles. I've read Inferno of her this year. This is an inventive autobiographical novel in which Eileen Myles transforms life into a work of art suffused with alcohol, drugs, and sex, all that we love. Evocative in its depictions, of the hard-scrabble realities of a young queer artist's life, with raw, flickering stories of awkward love, laughter, and discovery, Chelsea Girls is a funny, cool, and intimate account of how one young female writer managed to shrug off the imposition of a rigid cultural identity. I love everything about what this says, and all of this sort of like, you know what? Who are you to tell me what to do? I'm going to do my own thing, and that's why I love poets, particularly queer ones. Into the Weeds, Lydia Davis. This is Lydia Davis's book, Why I Write. I just love this series, Why I Write. I've read a few of these. Patti Smith wrote one. Seamus Heaney wrote one. Karl Knausgaard, which I talk about a lot in this channel. Also, I read one of his. And I just love them. I just love to peer into authors' minds and their sort of ethos about writing. And talking about writing, this is another book about writing, Hunger by Knut Hamsun, which is a Scandinavian novel and a Norwegian novel, actually. It's apparently quite a classic, and I have stumbled upon this book several times this year. It has been recommended here, left and right, in essays that I read. So obviously, I thought, yeah, okay, I get it. Looks kind of bleak, but I'm curious. Give me the darkness. First published in Norway in 1890, Hunger probes the depths of consciousness. Ooh. With frightening and gripping power. Contemptuous of novels of his time and what he saw as their stereotypical plots and empty characters, Knut Hamsun embarked on an attempt to describe the strange, peculiar life of the mind, the mysteries of the nerves, and the starving body. Like the works of Dostoevsky, Hunger marks an extraordinary break with Western literary and humanistic traditions. This sounds intense, so I will probably not be reading this in the winter. But I will be reading this. Finally, this is also one of these books that I've had on my shelf for a really, really long time. I've read a few of these essays in here. Actually, I've read like one of the most important essay in here, but I do need to read the whole book. Audre Lorde, Sister Outsider, the revolutionary writings of Audre Lorde gave voice to those outside the circle of the society's definition of acceptable women. Girl, bring it on. Bring it on. I need some voices rising from the dead to tell me that I can live the way I want to live. Uncompromising, angry, and yet full of hope, this collection of her essential prose, essays, speeches, letters, interviews explores race, sexuality, poetry, friendship, the erotic, and the need for female solidarity. Girl, I'm there. And includes the landmark piece, The Master of Tools Will Never Dismantle the Master's House. This is actually one of the essays I read before, and I read also The Use of the Erotic, which I think is a phenomenal essay. I read it a couple times already, but I do need to finish the whole collection. This is another one that I've been meaning to read for a long time, A Lover's Discourse, Fragment d'un discours amoureux, which is the French title by Roland Barthes. It is a book about love again. I like reading about this because it's kind of cerebral. It's really literally about, I think it's about the words we use to describe certain states of love and how the language also shapes our experience of it. And it's written in fragments. It's written in like little vignettes, which is something that I like. So many books to read on our little book club, upcoming book club. Again, if you want to know the details, please subscribe to the newsletter. Then we have Speedboat by Renata Adler. So I stumbled upon this completely randomly. I don't remember where. I don't remember how. Probably on Goodreads. Probably saw many of the readers that I follow on there rate it. I also very, very much like these New York Review of books and their selections. I think they're always kind of interesting and good and kind of like edgy. Edgy is a good word for them. They're always kind of edgy, and this one particularly striked me because it's like she struck. Struck me. This one struck me because it. Actually, the first sentence says itself. When Speedboat burst onto the scene in the late 70s, it was like nothing readers had encountered before. And my little wiring goes, what do you mean? What do you mean? How can you write something that was never encountered before and still have people salivating over it? That's the secret to literature. It seemed to disregard the rules of the novel, but it wore its unconventionality with ease. Reading it was pleasure of a new, unexpected kind. That's kind of what I like. My first thought when I read this was like, okay, but I probably won't like it because sometimes too experimental, is something that I either have to be really in the mood for or like I get easily bored. Sometimes boredom isn't such a bad thing. Like My Struggle series, basically by Karl Ove Knausgaard, is a 6-book series that I've talked about a lot in this channel in the videos, but I often get bored reading those, and still I think it's very rewarding. So who knows? Reading it was pleasure of a new and unexpected kind. Above all, there was its voice, ambivalent, curious, wry, the voice of Jen Fain, the journalist, negotiating the fraught landscape of contemporary urban America. That's what I love, the voice. If it's a voice, it's a voice, Party guests, taxi drivers, brownstone dwellers, professors, journalists, presidents, and debutantes fill these dispatches from the world as Jen finds it. A touchstone over the years for writers as different as David Foster Wallace, love him, and Elizabeth Hardwick. I'm conflicted about her, but Speedboat returns to enthrall a new generation of readers. I still really would love to read it. And this is a book that I think I've talked about this maybe a couple times, a long time ago, but this is something that I have been meaning to read for a really long time. I really hope I'm going to get to it now. It's Essential Writings on Motherhood, basically, Mother Reader. It's a compilation of essays about motherhood, but by different authors. There's also some by Sylvia Plath, Adrienne Rich, Annie Ernaux, Lydia Davis, Margaret Atwood, Ursula K. Le Guin, Doris Lessing, who famously abandoned her children, Toni Morrison, who had a lot of children and who famously woke up at 5 a.m. to write every morning before her teaching job. Grace Paley, who I've never read, but I've heard a lot of. So I'm very interested in that because I am a mother and I am a reader, and it seems to be calling out to me. Antwerp by Roberto Bolaño. Our favorite Chilean author. I haven't read any of his books yet, but I believe I should. Wait, have I? No, I haven't. I believe I should start with this one. It's like dream collection fragments, vignettes. It looks amazing. I hear great things about this man, this writer. I have a few of his really big books, which are definitely books I want to read, but like some of his books are books that I placed in my list of books I need to read before I die. I should start with this one. So, amid the seedy hotels and deserted campsites of the Costa Brava, someone has gone missing. A detective sets out to find them. They search among the hapless girls, failed poets, and shifty policemen who populate this dream world, but every door opens onto a nightmare. An experimental novella spliced together in vignettes. I love vignettes. Antwerp is Roberto Bolaño's first work of fiction, a personal declaration of the power of literature. To read it is to be present at the Big Bang of Bolaño's enterprise into prose, to see the beginning, to witness the moment when his talent exploded into the world. Then we have Milan Kundera, The Art of the Novel. I'm a Kundera completist from now on, and I am also compiling a list of books on writing. I've actually made a video once and I failed to publish it because I thought it wasn't complete by the time I was starting to edit it. So I'm going to have to do that again and update my reading. It's Kundera talking about the art of the novel, and he has a very specific style of novel writing, I think, that I love and that is very particular, and I need to learn more. Flights! Olga Tokarczuk. She is a Polish author, I believe. She won the Nobel Prize at some point. I really, really, really want to read this so much. It's a big book, so I need to commit to it, but I really want to read this. It's been on my pile for a while. I feel its urgency somehow. And I've read a book of her that this year, actually, that I didn't really like so much, called The Imposium, but this one seems completely different, and it's very much my jam. Flights is a novel about travel in the 21st century and human anatomy, broaching life, death, motion, and migration. From the 17th century, we have the story of the Dutch anatomist Philip Verheyen, who dissected and drew pictures of his own amputated leg. From the 18th century, we have the story of North African-born slave turned Austrian courtier, stuffed and put on display after his death. Ooh. In the 19th century, you follow Chopin's heart as it makes the covert journey from Paris to Warsaw. In the present, we have the harrowing story of a young husband whose wife and a child mysteriously vanish on a holiday on a Croatian island. This sounds heavy. I love it. With her signature grace and insight, Nobel Prize and Literature laureate guides the reader beyond the surface layer of modernity and toward the core of the very nature of humankind. Baby, give it to me. Baby, give it to me. I want to read that. Then, this one I have been having on my shelf for, I think 3-4 years. The reason I want to read it is because I'm really into travel writing. And other than the fact that I'm really into travel writing, I also am a huge fan of Barry Lopez, who is a travel writer who wrote magnificent, incredible, the best, most beautiful essays I've ever read about his travels from, I believe he was an anthropologist, and that's why he traveled so much and wrote so much about his travels. And he just has the craziest adventures in the craziest cultures. And in one of his essays, I remember reading about him saying, if you want to be a travel writer or whatever, or just if you want to get inspired by travel writing, you should read Alexandra David-Neel. And she was badass. This is My Journey to Lhasa. She is literally the first woman who has met the Dalai Lama. And she's had to pretend to be a man to get to the Dalai Lama. And this is the book of her journey to the Dalai Lama. And it sounds amazing. It's written in the 1920s. In 1923, a stout 55-year-old French woman, she was French, named Madame Alexandra David-Neel, a former opera singer. Man, she's badass. And a dedicated student of the East, disguised herself as a male pilgrim and ascended to the ancient Tibetan city of Lhasa. Her classic account of her adventure, one of the epic journeys of our time, was first published in 1927. And you know what? There's an endorsement from the foreword by His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. Alexandra David-Neel was exceptional. Not only were independent women travelers like her unusual, and that's why I want to read this book, but Europeans versed in Sanskrit and Buddhist philosophy who also spoke Tibetan was extremely rare. Man, I should read this book as soon as possible. No, it sounds amazing. No? Damn. Every time I read about it, I'm like, why am I not prioritizing reading this? This should be the book I read tomorrow. Damn. Next, we have Susan Sontag on photography. So I know I've been bitching about Susan Sontag. I actually read her diaries, and in this video of all the books I read in 2026, I talked about how I felt that she was a bit too disembodied for me. However, I do believe that she writes brilliant essays on very pertinent topics. And On Photography is one of those books that just seem to need me to, it needs to be read. Because, like it or not, we live in a visual culture. Hey there. We live in a visual culture. It's everywhere. We are influenced by images, we are influenced by photos, and now AI is even in the mold. So I think it's the right time to read this. I read one of her books on pain, on the pain of others, regarding the pain of others. If there's one thing that Susan Sontag is good at, is to push the edge of your thinking about certain topics and to make you question your own biases and to also make you question your free will in some way. How easily influenced or influenceable you are. And On Photography, I know, is very much, well, it goes into the phenomenology of photographs and taking photos, but also how it influences everything from our individual lives to our memories, to the culture, to cultural memory, and how, like, photography has been a revolution in humankind. And I speak as though I have read it, but I haven't. I just have been eyeing this book for a really long time. And again, it's one of those books that you have to sit and think. I gotta think if I read this book. So I gotta save it for a moment where I actually have some brain space to think. But I do want to get to it as soon as possible. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's true. I completely forgot about that. Well, I'll cut that out. Yeah, I thought so, but then I just remembered I already read a verse. Oh, this is just a poetry collection. Poems to the Night, Rainer Maria Rilke. It's my favorite poet, and all things moon and stars in the universe. I'm in for it. I'm gonna read this. Let's read some more short little passage, just for the funsies. When your face consumes me, like tears, the one who weeps, my brow, my mouth propagates around the features I know for you. And this was written in Paris, so even better. Less Than Zero by Bret Easton Ellis. This guy wrote American Psycho, The Shards, plenty novels. I love his style so much. I actually started to read this book. I have no idea why I stopped reading it. Oh, actually, I know. It's because it's one of those really old books, and I kind of am allergic. Like, I'm very sensitive to dust. So I remember when I was reading this, I was like, I can't read this too much. And then I stopped. But I love these books so much. I love, like, finding them. I love reading these old editions that Yeah, it's stuffy. It's stuffy, but it's cool. And it looks cool. And it sounds cool. And the writing is cool. And Bret Easton Ellis is a cool author. Camus, The Myth of Sisyphus. Again, I've been meaning to read this for freaking long, and I think this is the moment. I actually think that this month is the month that I should start reading this. It's about absurdism, and it's funny because I was first sort of like swayed by existentialism, and then I didn't even know about this at the time. I think I've read a bunch of Camus as like in high school. But at the time, I don't know why they make you read such books in high school. Like, you don't know anything. You're, like, so stupid and, like, reading these profound novels. But this is not a novel. This is an essay collection. The writings in this volume are all, in their own way, hymns to the physical world and the elemental pleasures of living. Through the story of a man condemned forever to roll a rock up a hill, the myth of Sisyphus argues that, in a meaningless world, freedom and happiness can be gained through an awareness of pure existence. The other essays here include a lyrical evocation of the skies, I love that, shadows and silences of summers in Algiers, memories of street life in Oran, and an exploration of beauty is our salvation. This makes me want to read it right away. I might pick this up next, actually. It's time. It's about time. This is one of these books, Bernard Cooper, Maps to Anywhere, winner of the Hemingway Award, which is kind of lost. Kind of very, very niche. They're like basically small essays that sort of bridge. I think this bridges sort of random things with personal anecdotes. So I love creative nonfiction, and I love it even more when the essays are not super long. And Annie Dillard is one of my favorite authors, as well as Philip Lopate, and they both have endorsed this book. This set of essays captures the open-ended, rootless feel of modern life, these dazzling, elusive shards crafted with precision. Bernard Cooper is extremely gifted. This book is fascinating. Annie Dillard, that's kind of vague. Ooh, but Philip Lopate wrote a very good endorsement. When an author has this much intelligence, verbal dexterity, warmth, and honesty, we can safely predict we will be reading him with relish for years to come. I was sold with verbal dexterity. Verbal dexterity. Kind of turns you on, doesn't it? Verbal dexterity. Like flexible, but verbally. The solace of open spaces. There's one thing that I love as well in books is when people write about nature and long walks in nature and slow observations about nature and human life and trees and birds and particular plants and the slow living and that story of that shepherd. I don't know. This seems really beautiful. I really do love nature books. And I need it, I think, especially when I am a bit stuck in the city or I feel like it's winter and everything is bleak and I need to sort of like imagine myself somewhere more exotic, even if that place is Wyoming. Ask me why, I don't know. This sounds amazing, actually. In 1976, Gretel Ehrlich traveled from her home in New York to Wyoming to shoot a film on sheep herders. While she was away, her partner died. Although she had never planned to stay, Ehrlich found herself unable to leave. What started out as a work trip became the beginning of a new life, as well as a long and deep attachment to place. Writing of sheep herding alone across Wyoming Badlands, her experience of being struck by lightning. Whoa! She was struck by lightning! The true meaning of cowboys, and taking her new husband to the rodeo for their honeymoon, as well as the changing seasons, extreme winters, and the wind. Ehrlich draws us to their personal relationship with this planet of Wyoming she has come to call home. As tough as it is tender, The Solace of Open Spaces is travel memoir that is embedded in place and nature writing with an unexpected bite. It is a bold testimony to how landscape we live in affects who we are. Wow! I never read this, but it makes me want to read it even more. I had this weird feeling when I started to read about all the books that I want to read where in like this sort of preemptive grief, knowing that I cannot possibly get through all of them and that I have to choose and that time is limited and that I cannot read all the books in the world and that I might not be getting to any of these books, but that, yeah, I don't know. I really want to read this one. Oh my goodness. Okay, it's fine. All right, whatever. Wild by J. Griffiths, An Elemental Journey. This I've been meaning to read forever. This is a bit more extreme. It's kind of like the same as like Going in the Wild and stuff, but this woman, she like went for it. She traveled. She tasted blood. She put herself in the most uncomfortable situations just to reconnect with the visceral feeling of being a human body connected to the earth and devoid of comfort and exposed and within the most out there, secluded sort of tribes. She writes, I took 7 years over this work, spent all I had, my time, money, and energy. Part of the journey was a green riot and part a deathly bleakness. I got ill, I got well. I went to shamans in the Amazon for their hallucinogenic medicine and went to their freedom fighters of West Papua to sing my head off in their highlands. I met cannibals infinitely kinder than the murderous missionaries who evangelized them. I anchored a boat to an iceberg where polar bears slept, ate witchetty grubs, and visited sea gypsies. I found a paradox of wildness in the glinting softness of its charisma, for what is savage is in the deepest sense gentle, and what is wild is kind. In the end, a strangely sweet result. I came back to my wild home. This sounds great. It's very well rated on Goodreads. I don't remember how I came across it. I just know it's huge and it sounds intense. I know also that every time I sort of like read passages from it, the prose is just so gripping and I love it. It's one of those books that you really need to, I think, to read at the right time. And I know I've been meaning to read it for a long time, and I know I will eventually get to it. And I should probably stop getting more books on my TBR if I want to get all these books. But yeah. Then we have Possession by A.S. Byatt. This is one of the books I want to read before I die as well. For some reason, I'm very attracted to it because it seems to defy genres. It seems to... Also, I love these books that are very like meta about, especially when it comes to literature. Like it's about writers or about poets that write about something, and it's like opens these sort of like never-ending loops and layers. And apparently, it's also part detective story, which sounds gripping. So many of you have probably read it because it's quite a popular book. It won the Booker Prize, I think, at some point in 1990, actually. When mind-maddened and unremarkable academic Roland Mitchell stumbles upon a letter written by Victorian poet Randolph Osh to a mysterious woman with whom he seems to be infatuated, he is determined to uncover the truth. Winner of the 1990 Booker Prize, Possession defies categorization. Rich in symmetry and symbolism, brimming over with myth, poetry, and fairy tale, Byatt's masterpiece is part literary detective story, part academic satire, and part historical novel. At its heart, however, is the compelling romance that draws the reader into the mirrored worlds of two couples, past and present, and explores the nature of obsession, possession, and love. Again! I like also these narratives that abridge past and future, sort of like the future investigating the past, or like how a past narrative can be related to a future narrative. This is quite typical or quite a trope in literature in general. I don't know, maybe this actually invented it. Who knows? I don't know. But I do want to read it. It's very heavy, very long. It's also one of these books I want to... Yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to be a redundant thing to say, but... I feel like all of these big books that seem very special and gripping, you just don't want to like cheapen it by randomly picking them up. I have to be in a mood. You know what I mean? A lot of these are more recent books. Actually, this one not at all. This is a book that I will read. I have to read this month eventually for a book club that I have. It's called The Fawn by Magda Szabó. She is a Hungarian author. I have never read Hungarian literature, I believe, and so this will be a first. Apparently, it's one of Hungary's most important 20th century writers, and it's about an actress. And I also have a thing for books on actors and actresses. Esther Anxie is an acclaimed actress, funny and outrageous, quick-witted but callous. Yet, even flushed with the success of adulthood, Esther craves acceptance of the person she really is and has been. Something many actors might relate to. The only child of an impoverished aristocrat and a harried music teacher failing to make ends meet, Esther grew up poor and painfully aware of it in a provincial Hungarian town. The feelings of resentment and envy acquired during her fraught childhood have hardened into an obsessional hatred for one person, the beautiful, saintly and pampered Angela. Baby girl. My baby. Okay, a lot of books I want to read. Actually, there's a long list of other books I would love to read, but I think this is already way too long, and I don't even know if I get to finish all of this year, but very excited to be able to talk about a few of these in the book club with you. Again, if you want to be part of that, get the news and all that, please subscribe to the newsletter. And if you want to read more of my writings, you can find it there. And let me know what your TBR looks like and whether you're actually the kind of person that manages to finish books on time, or like books that you have on that list, or whether like me, this is just a fantasy TBR, and who knows what books you'll pick up next. Thank you for watching. Bye. Bye. Who says bye? Oh, are you still filming? Well, ciao.